Okay, welcome back to uh, Bacon One. So, in terms of donations, we are absolutely smashing it now. We've
Yeah.
got £4,105 raised of our £10,000 target. Um, Somebody who's made a big contribution to this is Dave Kennedy, Hacking Dave, who you'll know. I expect most people know who Dave is.
Founder of DerbyCon and CEO, yes, of
Yeah,
Trusted Sec.
indeed. Dave, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Such an honor to be here, and appreciate everything that all the prior speakers and all you folks are doing. What an amazing event! So thanks again for having me on.
And thanks for being here. So, just give for the people that don't know who you are, just give us a little bit of who you are, what you do.
Sure. So my name's Dave Kennedy. I've been in the information security space now for about 19 years. Been everything from I used to work in the military intelligence side. I did 2 tours in Iraq, so a military veteran in the Marine Corps, doing intelligence related missions. To a chief security officer at a Fortune 1000 company, and then I decided to start out of the basement of my house 2 companies, Trusted Tech and Binary Defense, and also author of a number of open source exploitation frameworks like Unicorn, the Social Engineer Toolkit, Pen Testers Framework, Artillery. Co-authored the book Metasploit: The Penetration Tester's Guide. Been testified in front of Congress on numerous occasions, and how about the TV show Mr. Robot? So that's a little quick synopsis of me and myself.
So, there's not a lot you haven't done then, really.
Yeah.
It's fair
Yeah.
to say.
It's really weird. I remember growing up as a kid, and I used to play a lot of what are called MUDs, multi-user dimensions, text-based games, and I never thought that. And my dad would always yell at me. I'd be up until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning playing these games, and then go to school at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And who would ever thought that type of habit would have paid off in the future? But it's definitely done well for me, and just so humbled to be part of the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Marines are well known for a nice 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. So,
Oh yeah, that happened quite often.
so Dave, tell us a little bit about how important the community is to you because you were the founder of DerbyCon, which ran for 10 years, yeah,
9 years,
and
yeah.
nine
Yeah.
years, and just I think it's safe to say that in the Midwest of the U.S., maybe even the whole of the U.S., you've really been at the forefront of sort of community development and supporting and encouraging the next generation.
That's that I think you said it the right way. It's inspiring the next generation, right? Because we're only on this earth for a small period of time. And I remember when I first got into this industry, it was a very small industry. I think DEF CON 8 was my first DEF CON. And I remember hanging out with Phil Zimmerman and the Shmoo Group, and Cult of Dead Cows, and all these really iconic folks that really spun up what we know as the information security industry today. And it was a community. It was people that had a passion to make a difference, to change things in a way that hadn't been done before. And people will say, well, hey, there really is no community. It's just the information security profession. And I really disagree with that. There's a speaker called David Logan who talks about tribal leadership, which is basically a way to um, you know work with different tribes that kind of work together for one similar goal or belief. And when I first started DerbyCon with a number of my friends, it was really to recreate what I had experienced at DEF CON 8, which was community, people working together. There was no egos or groups together. It was all kind of sharing and collaborating. And I think for this industry, we have so many amazingly talented people. And there's a whole influx of new people. You look at when I first came in, it was 99.9% men, and now you're looking at it as maybe 30 to 40% women, and that's incredible, right?
Mhm.
And just having new people coming into the industry and being open to everybody, and to really build upon that and say, listen, we're going to be here for a short period of time. Can we do something to help this new generation of folks coming in and to feel welcome, that this is a viable option for them in their career to really skyrocket? And that's really what we built DerbyCon off of, was just community. We raised hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for charities. We gave back to the community. I mean, it's funny. When we started DerbyCon, it was never to make a profit. We'd put all the money that we made into DerbyCon into either building next year to make it better, or to give it to people that needed it, that were in need of help, charities, people that were in need. That's really what we founded DerbyCon off of, and really what the whole community was about.
Well, you brought like a lot of those Midwestern values because Cleveland probably not known as this hot seat of information security, in general, but as it turns out, we just spoke earlier today with Gabby, who is started in the industry about a year and a half ago and is just going great guns. And it seems like the Midwest of the US is generating some incredible capability.
That's right. And I think, you hear a lot of, where DerbyCon started was like a lot of the family values, right? Coming in and feeling accepting of one another. But you look at what Gabs has been able to do. You look at what Caitlin and the badass
Yeah.
folks have been able to do as well. I mean, incredible groups just spawning out of something that, they have very noble missions, trying to help people that are in need. And that's the thing. Like, people always ask, like, what drives you to move forward? And my response back is my whole goal is to make the world a better place when it comes to technology. And I hopefully can say that when I die someday, which will happen, all of us die. That we did something different to make the world a better place. And that Midwestern value, I think, really has a lot to do with that. One thing that isn't public knowledge yet, but this last DerbyCon was our very final one, and we started something called DerbyCon Communities. But we had some extra money left over from DerbyCon, roughly around $50,000, and all of those are going to various charities.
Lovely.
We have Badass is getting donations, the Innocent Lives Foundation, what Amanda Berlin's doing with the Mental Health Awareness Village, that's getting donations. Basically, we're depleting all of our funds from DerbyCon and giving it out to charities to be able to help out for those to kind of spawn those as well and help them out in various different ways. So, whatever we can do, it's really just about helping other people and to make this community as great as it can possibly be.
On that note, you've got a huge sort of arc of experience because you mentioned some of the early formation days, Shmoo and Cult of the Dead Cow and those contributions. So you have, sort of the whole lens of history. Uh, Where do you see the communities going? Because I think, I see there's been some issues with toxicity. There's been some issues with, I would say, bad actors in the space. But do you feel this is growing pains, or do you feel disconcerted that this is sort of a grim future?
You know, there's no question that there has been some toxicity, some negativity. There's definitely been some unwillingness to accept new folks coming into the industry, gender, race, religion. And again, you look at it and you look at the demographics of kind of how this industry started. It was 99% white males was kind of that it was. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just how it was 10 years ago.
That's right.
And you have a lot of different cultures now coming into this industry, and there's definitely some conflict. And I think you have some old regime ways of thinking that that are still out there. I think that's drastically changing, and I think what you see is you have fringe cases of a lot of negative folks that aren't necessarily accepting of one another. And I just want to be clear that like everybody is welcome to this industry, no matter what you look like or who you are or what disabilities you have or how much experience you have. If your focus is on social engineering, you're not technical. This industry is such a diverse industry that it's welcome to everybody. And I think a lot of the things that you see out there are really the minority of people that still kind of have that legacy thought. I think the industry as a whole, the community as a whole, and when I talk about community, that there is no one community. There's thousands and thousands of communities that make up the overall community that's out there. We have different tribal groups that we all kind of follow and kind of attest to and try to make the world a better place. And so I think you have fringe cases of people that are negative or maybe are going through some very substantial issues in their own lives, or they're just not willing to change or be accepting of other people. And I think that is bubbled up to the top, and it creates a lot of friction in our industry because you have one person or maybe a group of small people kind of voicing their expressions, which are not good in some way, shape, or form, and you have a community that's kind of backing the majority up, which is great. I think in most of the cases that we've seen where there are issues that occur, the industry really corrects itself and really supports the people that are being mistreated in a number of ways. And I'm not saying it's a perfect system, But I think the large majority is really accepting of everybody. And I think the toxicity that you see is a very small fraction of it that happens in a lot of other industries as well, not just ourselves. So I think that'll course correct. And I think, our outlook is very positive. You look at DerbyCon, and like I said, as I mentioned before, the diversity that happened from DerbyCon 1 to DerbyCon 9 was astounding. It was, a complete shift in demographics of just white, black, Hispanic, genders, male, females, all these different things that happened, and it just changed very drastically over time. And it was a better conference because of that. And I think that those pains that you see as the industry grows and matures is bound to happen, and we just have to really emphasize the positivity that's happening in the industry because there's a lot of great that's going on right now.
Cool. So I was going to get Mike to jump in on something here, but it seems like he's. Oh,
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, question I've got for you, Dave, is 19 years ago when Dave Kennedy gets into InfoSec. Fast forward 19 years to 2019 when Dave Kennedy's been in InfoSec for nearly 2 decades. What's different? What's changed in your view?
Well, I got less hair, had kids.
You have kids that have kids.
Yeah, not that old. Jeez, oh, Pete.
Oh.
That sounded like a really good question in my head before I
What's interesting about 19 years ago, when you look at when I first joined InfoSec, when I consider myself joining the information security industry, I came in to an industry that really wasn't mature yet, and I found a group at the time called Remote Exploit, and that was run by Matty Arahoni Mutz, that started IWAX, WAPIX, Auditor, and then ultimately became Backtrack and Kali.
Yeah.
And this is probably 2003 when I first joined that group. And I was part of the Backtrack development team. I was part of the Exploit DB development team. And, that group that I joined, I remember talking to Mutz in 2003, and I'm like, hey, I really want to get into security, or not security, but I really want to understand like programming and developing my own tools like Metasploit and things like that. And I think my Metasploit at the time was still Perl. And Mutz is like, hey man, here's what I would recommend. And Mutz just mentored me as a young person in this industry that really gave me that inspirational community feeling about how I needed to progress my career. And I think that's something that a lot of people, this industry's grown much more larger, that if you're coming into this industry, try to find a mentor that you can learn off of that has some experiences out there. I have about 7 mentees that I basically talk to on a regular basis that try to help them kind of grow their career. Cool. That welcomeness that we have when we start, and when I first started into this industry, having somebody like Mutz, who became one of the most pinnacle people in information security, I really credit to a lot of my career. So I think that 19 years ago, I had no idea that I was going to be successful in information security. I had no idea I was going to run 2 businesses and have 300 employees that rely off of me, which is its own discussion in every sense and form. Yeah. But it really changed my life to have somebody that could listen about what my problems were and what I was trying to experience, and how to kind of grow my career. And that really made a huge difference in me and ultimately my success.
Awesome.
Yeah,
sorry, Sean, carry on, mate.
So you mentioned it already, the DerbyCon communities. That looks like a fairly recent thing. It sounds pretty interesting. Do you want to give a bit more information about that?
Yeah. So what happened is, we burned out on DerbyCon. For us, running 9 years of a conference, when we started DerbyCon, it was like, we were all in a pizza shop and we're like, hey, we should start this conference and I think it'd be fun. And all of a sudden we're selling tickets out in 12 seconds, and we have, Wu-Tang, we have Vanilla Ice, and we have The Offspring, we have Sublime, and it's these big parties, and it's 9 months of planning, and we're dealing with millions of dollars of money that we're trying to like move to different locations. And it's like, we decided that, it was no longer fun for us to go and do. And when it was fun for us was when it was, 1,500 people and less. Right. And it wasn't as much of an event for us to plan. And what we decided to do was, end DerbyCon, because there's no good way to say, hey, we're going to cut 3,000 tickets and only make it a 1,500 person conference. It's sell it in half a millisecond, then I'd have the entire internet torching me with with torches and tar and feather. But it was one of those decisions that was really tough for us. But we decided to cancel the conference. But we didn't want to leave that feeling of what DerbyCon was. And the folks from Security Weekly did a video and interviewed people at DerbyCon of like why DerbyCon was special to them. And if you listen to 99% of the people, it's like they walked in and they felt like family. And they felt like they were accepting of one another. You can come in and share your experiences, whether you had 6 months of information security experience or 30 years of information security experience. You're on the same level with other people around you, and you were sharing your experiences and you're accepted. And that was really what DerbyCon was about. And I think when we decided to cancel DerbyCon, we went through some emotional challenges there because it was our baby. We had a lot of emotional attachment to the people that made DerbyCon possible, our security, our staff, our sponsors, the people that came to it. I mean, it was just an amazing event that it changed my life forever. And so what we wanted to accomplish with DerbyCon Communities was the people that were inspired by DerbyCon to be able to facilitate and create their own DerbyCons themselves, whether that was a monthly meetup where you're accepting of one another, you come in, you learn from one another's experiences, and it's just an open dialogue and forum, or it was creating your own DerbyCon conference. It was all part of that group. And what we also did, there's also great events like B-Sides, for example, which is phenomenal, right? B-Sides happening all over the place. It was a phenomenal event. I mean, what Chris and Jack and all of those guys were able to accomplish with B-Sides was incredible. We also created something called Establish, which were conferences that followed our 3 core principles could join the DerbyCon network and become part of the DerbyCon family as well. So we have B-Sides, organizations and other organizations that run conferences that are part of the DerbyCon network as well. Right now we have 47 that have joined before we even announced that we were coming out with it. Wow. And so it's a network of people that are really trying to carry on DerbyCon's values, which, it's positivity, inclusiveness, knowledge sharing, and charity. Right. With the charity pieces, again, I think it was, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it was like $470,000 that we had donated to charities through our 9 years running, which is an incredible feat. And we want to be able to replicate the same thing that we're able to create with DerbyCon to the rest of the world.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Quick question for you, Dave, from Old Red Fox, who's listening in. The question is, what advice would you give to somebody that's looking for a mentor?
So good question. I think when you're looking for a mentor, you want to find somebody that is in the same area that you have your same expertise. Like for example, let's just say you're into exploitation. Find somebody that's in exploitation, but also holds a lot of your same values and traditions. Whether that's positivity, whether that's they work for the same type of job you'd eventually want to have. People that would share the same type of experiences that you'd want to have in your career growth, and honestly, just reach out to them and say, hey, this is where I'm at in my career. You're somebody that I look up to that I eventually want to become. Is there any way I can just bounce some ideas off of you from here to there? And what you don't want to do is be like, hey, I need 5-minute call with you every single day for the rest of your life. That's not going to work. I have some really stalkerish people like, hey, why didn't you call me today? I'm like, dude, I called you like yesterday. This is getting really weird.
That's why Dave doesn't return my calls anymore. I'm kidding. But
I try. But just things that you can leverage them for to communicate. And if you position it in that way, most people will say yes. And if they say no, they're not the right mentor for you. So when you look at a mentor, look at somebody that you would want to eventually step in their same footsteps as a career path. And it's funny. There's somebody that came up to me. His name is Matthew Graber. Came up to me when it was like DerbyCon 2 or 3, and Matt Graber, no one knew who he was, and now he's one of the leading research folks from Microsoft. He worked at Microsoft, now works at Spectre Ops. And Matt Graber came up to me and he's like, "Hey, Dave, I just got some questions." And I sat there with him at DerbyCon for probably an hour, just talking to him about my experiences and what I can do. And all of a sudden now Matt Graber then keynotes DerbyCon, and he's this reckoning force in the security industry. it takes you to go out and talk to somebody and ask them to help them out, to give some guidance, and that perspective can really help guide your career as you kind of grow along. And my most important piece about all that is find somebody that is absolutely positive. If their tweets are negative, if they're always negative against themselves or others, they're usually not a good mentor. Find somebody that's really positive in nature, that can really be a good mentor to you, and those will usually be some of the best people that you can actually find.
Mhm.
Perfect. Yeah, but absolutely brilliant. Okay, Dave, your time is up, sir.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, that was quick. That was like the quickest interview ever.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure that the people listening enjoyed your time with us. So, thank you very much
Absolutely.
indeed. Yeah,
Yes,
really
sir.
appreciate your
Thank you
time.
guys so much for having me on. It's such a pleasure. I'll close with one thing, which is, this industry has a lot of different industry verticals, and we're always looking for people, and it's always for everybody. And all I can say to you is, for people coming into this industry, try to make a difference in other people's lives. One thing that's not public news yet, is when I grew up, in a very poor neighborhood. In fact, it's one of the top neighborhoods in the lowest income rates in Ohio. So I think the average income is $22,000, where I came from, and it's a high school called Bedford High School. And when I moved there, my family moved from place to place to place. And I ended up joining their technology board, and I've been guiding them on building technology roadmaps, and not announced yet, but it will be soon. I donated a substantial amount of money to Bedford High School, and they're now creating, it's called the David Kennedy Center of Gaming and Leadership and Technology,
Wow.
which will
Cool,
give
man.
roughly
What a
around
great
30
legacy.
scholarships per year, for students, to go and get scholarships for gaming, for computing, for leadership, in that school, to help them out. And it's just like, I never thought growing up as a kid in that type of environment that I would ever have an opportunity to give back to people in that industry. So, you can make a difference in this industry, and it's a way to just, look at it and say, hey, I came from these types of roots. I'm here now. What can I do to help other people coming into this industry? And everybody here starting off in the industry, or if you're already mature, make a difference, make the world a better place. And that's all we can hope for.
Can't argue with that.
Congratulations. That's such a huge contribution. Well done, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, guys.
The world's a better place for you in it, Dave. So thank you very
Yeah.
much, pal. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.